Hello, I'm Brian Foster, and I'm talking about different aspects of Spiritism. Spiritism was brought to us by Allan Kardec. He codified the Book of Spirits in the 1850s. His book is available on PDF. Today I'm going to talk about a book called Through the Mist. And this was about a spirit who narrated his journey in time in heaven to the medium R.J. Lees. The spirit commenced his book by telling him of his death. He never revealed his name on earth. The book is Through the Mist. I'll put a link to the PDF down below in the section. The spirit was a very religious man and practiced charity. He'd walk around the poorer sections of London helping the poor. He met his death at the end of the 19th century. Here is the start of his account. It was one evening when on my way to visit some of these uncared-for people that the great change overtook me. I was walking along a crowded footpath, engaged in the contemplation of the lights and shadows visible on the faces of passers-by, when I heard a scream and saw a child in daily peril among the horses in the road. He was not far away, so bounding forward with no thought for his safety, I reached and dragged him from his hazardous position, then turned and something touched me. I clasped the boy more firmly and stepped forward. The noise ceased. Vehicles in the street faded away, as if some great magician had waved his hand, and the darkness disappeared. Few people would have been enamored of the ragged child I rushed to save, with his shoeless feet, matted hair, and unwashed face. But the angel I found laying upon my breast would have driven an artist into raptures. For myself, in that instant, I had changed my morning suit for a loosely flowing robe, which somehow seemed to be a part of myself, and though I was fully assured of my own individuality, I was curious to know what had taken place, and by what means, in the interval of one solitary step, a transformation of such completeness had been effected. The lad, though evidently conscious of the alteration, looked into my face with calm, laughing eyes, void of any trace of fear. Perhaps he expected me to give some explanation, but I needed that myself. Then he buried his head in my shoulder and fell asleep. I sat and nursed him, trying to answer the only question which occupied my mind. Where are we? And that was from the book Through the Mist. And in the PDF version, that was page 7. Now, I'm interpreting this through Spiritism, which has given us a lot of information about the universe, the physical universe, the spirit universe, who we are, our immortal spirit. I recommend everyone to search more about Spiritism. Now, let me continue. The kind and charitable spirit attempted to rescue a child in the middle of the road, which was crowded with horse-drawn carriages. The man and child experienced no pain. Their bodies seemed intact, with no bruises or broken bones. They were not on the street, but in a different land. How could this be? The answer lies in the fact that we are immortal spirits who are personalities, which means that we are a self-encapsulated intelligence who has a perispirit, a body that covers us in the spirit world and performs other functions, which represents our outward appearance. On our planet, we inhabit a physical body, or so it seems to us, that lives according to distinct rules. Once we leave that temporary covering, we are back to where we belong, the spirit realm, in a different, more ethereal form, but still retains the same shape we had on Earth, at least until we choose to change it. But to us, we feel no different. Then he describes where he landed. I was reclining upon the grass of what can only be described as the auditorium of an immense but natural amphitheater, with the arena occupied by a multitude who appeared to be engaged in the reception of strangers, whom they were welcoming and congratulating. If only I could have understood it, the scene would have been as pleasing as it was brilliant. But under the circumstances, my feelings were more of curiosity than of appreciation. It resembled the performance of an elaborate tableau of which I held no descriptive program, being alike ignorant of the place, the players, and the purpose. This was all that I could understand. There were two classes of persons represented. The one, evidently residents, attired in garments embracing almost every shade of color with which I was familiar, and some the like of which I had never seen before, and therefore have no means to make you understand. The other, by far the smaller of the two, gave me the idea of strangers who, having just arrived, stood in need of the help and assistance so freely proffered. Where did they come from? I asked myself. To this I was enabled to find a somewhat satisfactory reply. Before me lay a plain across which numbers were continually coming and going. At its further side I saw a heavy bank of fog lying, the outlines of which were boldly portrayed as if confined within certain limitations. The atmosphere was so unusually clear that although the fog was perhaps some 2 miles distant from where I lay, I could easily discern that they entered the plain from that direction. I now became intensely interested in something which baffled my powers to determine whether it was real or an optical illusion. I noticed that the variegated color of the dresses worn by those who went from us toward the mist gradually faded until in the distance, but one uniform tone of gray was visible. On the contrary, as they returned, the original hues were as mysteriously restored. It seemed to me at length as if some magical influence was exerted by that vapor, or the plain was one what might be legitimately called enchanted. Now, that was in the book Through the Mist. Newly passed souls came to the mist to be met by kind and helpful spirits. This is a landing zone. This is talked about in many communications from spirits to spiritist mediums. This is one of the many areas in heaven where the spirits who have departed their physical bodies are taken to be assisted further upwards. The author at the time did not realize that many of these souls were aided to detach from their physical body and then brought to the landing zone, whereupon another team of spirits would take over. This illustrates the organization and planning of the spirit world. It's not just a mist with harp music playing. It is organized, controlled, and well thought out. Heaven comprises billions of spirits, most with jobs to do, if they wish to. From the lowest spirit worker to the middle manager to the leader of whatever group or division they are part of. All are ultimately directed by Christ, who usually did not give direct orders but guidelines for his various ministers, and in turn the information flows downward, thereby allowing spirits to act under their own initiative, not always correctly, but constantly learning how to improve. Now, this was just a small glimpse of heaven and its organization. If you wish to learn more about heaven, read my book, Heaven and Below, Book 1. God bless.